Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. You know the drill. We're ranking all the Pillars of Eternity classes. If you need a refresher on basic mechanics, there's a link in the description to my 2023 Pillars of Eternity Beginner's Guide. Let me know down in the comments if you found the information in this video helpful or have any feedback regarding my rating. Let's jump into the 8th class of this series, Priest. Priests gain power from their deep belief in a particular deity, and they can focus that power into spectacular magical effects. This class has two core mechanics. Holy Radiance heals all nearby allies while also dealing burn damage to vessels and potentially frightening them. Frighten causes enemies to have their resolve and dexterity reduced by 2, while their accuracy is reduced by 10. Priest also gain spells, which can be used a limited number of times per rest. As they grow in power, weaker spells can be cast on a per encounter basis. Priests get a +1 bonus to athletics and a +2 bonus to lore. Second wind from athletics could be useful if you want the priest to serve as a frontline fighter, and lore is always a great choice to make your main character more persuasive. Priests get very low endurance, low health, very low accuracy, and low deflection. Despite this atrocious stat progression, they can absolutely serve as off-tanks if you combine their incredible buffs with proper equipment and positioning. Priests also get to choose a deity, and similar to Paladin orders, each deity has specific dispositions they favor or disfavor. The higher you get in a favored disposition, the more damage and healing your Holy Radiance ability will inflict. Also, each deity has several unique dialogues you can experience in the game. At level 1, you will get access to 9 spells. Armor of Faith provides a +4 bonus to damage reduction. This is a monster defensive ability early in the game because a lot of enemies can only hit you for around 10 damage anyway. By mid-game, those numbers will increase significantly, and this will no longer be useful. Barbs of Condemnation does really nice piercing damage against one target and lowers their defenses by 5. This isn't bad, but I think for level 1 spells, you should focus on some of the other options. Blessing gives all nearby allies a +5 bonus to accuracy and a 10% bonus to damage. This is fantastic, especially early game, and will really help you mop up enemies. Divine Terror causes all enemies in a 1.25 meter radius to become frightened. Frighten is a nice debuff, but the small AoE radius makes this spell mediocre in most situations. Halt causes one enemy to become stuck, which prevents them from moving, reducing their dexterity by 2, accuracy by 5, and their reflex and deflection defenses are reduced by 20. What makes this so fantastic is that it has a fast cast, so right at the beginning of combat, you can identify the melee enemy who is really going to be a problem and root that person in place. Then your party can mop up the other foes who are easier to deal with while you cast buffs or defensive spells. Great stuff. Holy Meditation increases the concentration for your entire team by 30, while also increasing their will defenses by 15. Increasing will obviously has its benefits, but the real draw here is that many builds completely dump resolve, and therefore the bonus to concentration could be very helpful. Prayer Against Fear provides your team immunity to frightened and terrified afflictions, which some very powerful bosses deploy, so this spell is useful the entire game. Restore Minor Endurance does exactly what the title says and is a solid option early game. As your spell levels increase, you'll get higher levels of Restore Endurance, and all of them are meant to be emergency heals you can cast on party members. Finally, Withdraw shields one ally completely from harm while also regenerating their health. This spell has a fast cast, so it can be a great way to save someone in peril, but keep in mind it lasts for 20 seconds. Oftentimes the fight is over by then, so honestly I never use this because I'd rather my party member just go down swinging and help me win the fight faster. At level 2, priests have several new talents to choose from. Brilliant Radiance adds a little bit of burn damage to your Holy Radiance. This isn't worth a talent point and you should skip it. Interdiction causes all enemies in a wide area of effect to become dazed. Daze reduces accuracy by 10, attack speed by 15%, and dexterity, intellect, and perception are reduced by 2. Early game, this is a great debuff to cast against enemies, and since it's available once per encounter, it's a great way to limit how many per rest spells you are using. Later on, your buffs will be way more powerful, and using this ability won't make much sense, so it's up to you whether or not it fits this build. Also worth noting, if you take this option, then at level 4, you can select Painful Interdiction, which will add a weakening effect to the ability. So essentially, you can both daze and weaken enemies at the same time. It's up to you whether or not this is worth it in your build, but personally, I don't do it because again, the priest buffs are fantastic, and a lot of times you're just not going to have time in order to be able to use this. Aggrandizing Radiance reduces the healing for Holy Radiance by 75%, while also giving the entire party a bonus of +2 to all attributes and your move speed. Again, early game this isn't a bad option, but long term, the healing from this ability is more useful than the buff, and consequently I wouldn't take this. Inspiring Radiance increases the accuracy of Holy Radiance by 10. Enemies are difficult to hit in this game, so this is a good pickup if you're going to use Holy Radiance regularly. In addition to all of these options, all deities give you access to a special talent. Mogren provides Inspire Flame, which increases your accuracy by 10 when using swords or arquebuses. You'll also gain a flame area of effect that can be casted very quickly and is available once per rest. Using a rifle from long distance helps to protect your priest, and the accuracy increase will make this a decent damage option in the early game. This is probably the best out of all the deity-specific talents. Barath provides the Palette Hand, which increases your accuracy by 10 when using maces or a greatsword, and you get a corrosive area of effect that only hits enemies, but it does damage over time. There's some really nice greatswords in the game, so this might be worth taking, even though you won't find them until much later in the journey. Aethys can grant a +10 accuracy bonus when using flails or morning stars, and he grants an ability that lessens the duration of frightened or terrified effects on a friendly target by 10 seconds while also healing them for a small amount. The weapon options and ability from this talent are both mediocre, so I would skip it. Prey on the Weak comes from Scan, and it gives you a +10 accuracy bonus when using stilettos and clubs, while also granting lesser sneak attack, which increases your melee and range damage by 20% when attacking an enemy who is blinded, flanked, hobbled, paralyzed, petrified, prone, stuck, stunned, or weakened. If you have a melee-focused priest, this could be a really nice option. The last deity-related talent is Incomprehensible Revelation, which provides a +10 bonus to accuracy when using quarterstaffs or rods. Quarterstaffs are a really nice melee option for priests since they can be close to the action but far enough away that your tank takes the brunt of the punishment. This ability will also grant Lesser Archimere's Dazzling Lights, which reduces an enemy's will saves by 10 while also dazing them. Not particularly impressive, but it's also not a terrible pickup. At level 3 you get 9 new spells. Consecrated Ground sends multiple pulses of healing to all nearby allies for a short period of time. Keep in mind this isn't a large amount of healing that brings you back from the brink. Instead, think of this spell as something that consistently pumps out small bursts of healing to help you manage a fight. In emergency situations, you'll still want to use a Restore Endurance spell, but Consecrated Ground is still great to have. Divine Mark does a massive amount of burn damage while also reducing a target's deflection by 25. That's a fantastic way to deal with difficult enemies, but unfortunately the spell only has a range of 2.5 meters, so if your priest is squishy, this won't be particularly useful. Holy Power creates an area of effect that gives your team +3 might and +7 resolve for a long duration of time. Unfortunately, the aura only has a range of 1.3 meters, so unless you like crowding your team all together, this won't help you much. Iconic Projection heals allies while dealing freeze damage to any enemies caught in its path. The area of effect can stretch for a long distance, allowing you to harm hard to reach targets. In addition, this spell heals more than your Restore Endurance spell, making it a very nice early game option. Instill Doubt causes all enemies in the area of effect to become dazed. This is not particularly useful, and I wouldn't use it. Prayer Against Infirmity grants all allies immunity to sicken and weakened afflictions. Not something you'll use all the time, but against specific enemies it's very nice. Repulsing Seal causes all enemies that come in contact with it to be knocked prone. Prone reduces dexterity by 2, reflex and deflection by 10, and the enemy cannot take any actions. The important thing to note here is that the description says hazard area of effect, and hazards automatically gain a bonus to accuracy. Consequently, it can be very easy to hit high-level enemies with this spell, and you should be using it all the time. Finally, Suppressed Affliction suspends hostile effects on all party members for a short duration of time. Personally, I prefer the Paladin version of this because it lasts a lot longer, even though it applies to one person, but there are definitely times when this ability is useful, especially if a nasty spell has caught you off guard. At level 4, priests can select a talent that gives them one bonus level 1 spell. I don't think this is worth it, since long term, you can choose one of these spells to be per encounter, and you'll stop using most of them. At level 5, you'll get 8 new spells. Circle of Protection creates a zone that gives all party members a plus 15 bonus to all defenses. The bonus is fantastic, but unfortunately, it lasts a very short time even with high intelligence, so usually I don't bother using this. Despondent Blows reduces enemies' melee accuracy by 15 and causes 15% of their crits to be turned into hits. Against a squad of high-level melee-focused enemies, this could be useful, but for the most part, you have better options. Dire Blessing causes 20% of your allies' hits to be converted into crits. Monster buff if your team is geared around dealing critical hits. There are a ton of weapons in the game that deliver nasty effects when they crit, and if your party is geared this way, Dire Blessing is a game changer during your entire playthrough. If not, then obviously its usefulness plummets. Pillar of Faith does massive crush damage in a 1.78 meter radius and knocks enemies prone. Great way to deal damage while also pushing a major affliction on enemies. You'll probably want to use this quite a bit. Prayer Against Restraint makes all your allies immune to hobbled and stuck. I've never used this spell, and I cannot remember a battle where I wish I had. Warding Seal does really nice shock damage to enemies in an area of effect, and once again it's a hazard, making it easier to actually hit enemies with the effect. A great option to keep in mind. Finally, Watchful Presence can be placed on an ally and is triggered when that character dips below 20% endurance. This spell will automatically heal them for a decent amount, so it's nice to put on a tank when you know they are about to experience a lot of heat. At level 6, Priests can select a talent that gives them one bonus level 2 spell. Some of the spells at that level are very nice, so this isn't a bad pickup. At level 7, you get 8 new spells. Barring Death's Door allows you to prevent death on one character for a long period of time. The character can still be knocked out from endurance loss, and I absolutely never use this. Devotions of the Faithful gives your entire party a plus 4 bonus to might and a plus 20 bonus to melee and ranged accuracy, while inflicting a negative 10 penalty to might for enemies and also lowering their melee and ranged accuracy by 20. All of this is done in a 2.5 meter range, and the duration is considerable. Absolutely, this is one of the best buffs in the game, combined with a really nice debuff as well. Prayer Against Bewilderment gives your team immunity to dazed and confused afflictions. Confused can be devastating for your team, and there are a lot of enemies that can cast it, so this is nice to have. Searing Seal is another hazard area of effect that burns enemies for a considerable amount of damage while also blinding them. Blind reduces accuracy by 25, perception by 4, movement by 2, and the enemy's reflex and deflection defenses are reduced by 20. Personally, I like prone as a debuff more than blind, but this can be useful in a pinch. Shining Beacon reduces all enemies' defenses by 10 while doing burn damage over a long stretch of time. The damage isn't crazy, but this is a large, foe-only area of effect, so it's easy to apply in areas where your party members are present, and obviously the debuff is nice. Triumph of the Crusaders allows allies to gain endurance when they kill enemies. You have zero control over what enemies get credit for kills or how the health is distributed, so I don't think this is particularly useful. Consecrated Ground is much better at consistently giving your entire team heals. Finally, Litany Against Minor Afflictions makes one ally immune to the hobbled, blinded, frightened, distracted, dazed, confused, prone, stuck, and sickened afflictions for a considerable length of time. This can be great to put on your tank if you are going to make them take a barrage of nasty spells that inflict these types of statuses. At level 8, Priests can select a talent that gives them one bonus level 3 spell. I definitely recommend taking this, as more casts of Dire Blessing and or Pillar of Faith should be useful. At level 9, you get your first spell Mastery, which allows you to cast a level 1 spell as per encounter instead of per rest. Obviously what you select depends on your playstyle, but I would take Halt. You also get access to 7 new spells. Champion's Boon gives one party member a bonus of plus 10 to Perception and Might, while also providing plus 5 damage reduction for a long period of time. This is a massive buff, but it only applies to one person, so usually I don't bother with it. Pillar of Holy Fire does massive burn damage in a 1.25 meter radius. This is great to use with a priest who specializes in fire. Prayer Against Imprisonment makes the entire team immune to paralyzed and petrified conditions. There are some really difficult fights where enemies attempt to put these afflictions on you multiple times, so this is definitely nice to have. Revive the Fallen lets you revive all allies within a 1.25 meter radius. Hopefully you won't need this, but if you do, then it's nice to have. Salvation of Time increases the duration of active beneficial effects on your allies by plus 10. I never use this because characters who place buffs on allies should have high intelligence to ensure those buffs last as long as possible. Finally, Shields for the Faithful gives your entire team a plus 25 bonus to their deflection. This spell really shines if you have multiple frontline fighters who are absorbing physical damage. I only use a couple of tanks to keep heat off of squishies, and consequently I usually ignore this. At level 10, priests can select a talent that gives them one bonus level 4 spell. More Devotions for the Faithful cast cannot be a bad thing. Before we review the last 3 levels, let me remind you that the channel has a free Discord available for you to join, and the link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, I would also appreciate you hitting the like button. It really helps the channel out, and if you want to support this kind of content, please consider becoming a member of the channel where you'll get access to full playthrough episodes. At level 11, you can master one level 2 spell. I personally would choose Consecrated Ground. You also get access to 6 new spells. Cleansing Flame hits one target and then jumps to 2 other targets. They all experience a small amount of burn damage over time, while also having the duration of all active beneficial effects reduced by 5 for a limited period of time. This makes it a nice way to burn buffs off of enemies, but keep in mind many powerful enemies don't have buffs you can strip in this manner. Crowns of the Faithful increases the perception and intellect of your party members by 6, while also increasing their resolve by 25. An additional 25 resolve is a massive jump in your defensive capabilities. The additional intelligence will significantly help any classes that use area of effect, such as wizards, ciphers, and even barbarians. Perception is arguably a more important stat for damage dealers than might, so all the way around, this is an incredible buff and arguably the best one in the game. Minor Intercession heals allies for a small amount and reduces the duration of their active hostile effects by 5. The healing is mediocre, and priests have more effective ways to deal with nasty afflictions, so I never use this. Prayer Against Treachery makes your entire party immune to charmed and dominated effects. These afflictions are especially dangerous as not only do they shut a party member down, but they can also cause that person to turn their devastating abilities against you. Definitely a spell you want in your arsenal. Spark the Souls of the Righteous causes allies to get an aura that periodically shocks nearby enemies. If you have a priest built to do solid lightning damage, then this could be useful. Personally, I prefer using fire, so I skip this. Litany Against Major Afflictions causes one ally to become immune to charmed, terrified, stunned, petrified, paralyzed, dominated, and weakened for a long period of time. Again, definitely useful to put on your tank for serious encounters. At level 13, you get Spell Mastery and level 3 spells, and I would choose Dire Blessing. You also get access to 3 new spells. Minor Avatar gives your priest a 20% increase to melee and ranged damage, while also increasing all of your attributes by 8 and giving you an additional 40 max endurance. All of this occurs for a long period of time, and it's an absolutely massive buff for your character. Resurrection gives you a more powerful way to resurrect allies and heal them at the same time. Storm of Holy Fire deals decent burn damage and a massive area of effect for a considerable length of time. On its own, this is not that great, but if you use Minor Avatar first, that will increase the damage of this spell significantly, and since it covers such a wide area, you can completely eliminate large groups of really difficult foes. Not a combo you can throw out all the time, but when you need it, it's very impressive. At level 15, you get Spell Mastery and level 4 spells, and I would choose Devotions for the Faithful. In addition, you get access to 3 more spells. Hand of Wail and Woe produces a beam of light that deals burn damage to enemies while healing allies every second for 10 seconds. While the healing is not immediate, it is powerful, better than what you would get from Consecrated Grounds, although it probably won't impact as many party members. It helps that this spell is a fast cast, so it's easy to throw out when needed. The damage is also serviceable if you specialize in fire, but I do prefer spells with a more immediate effect. Watchful Guardian revives all allies within a 5-meter radius and heals them for a considerable amount. If things have gone truly bad, there are a few spells that can pull you back from the brink as effectively as this. Finally, each deity provides its own 8th level spell. Symbol of Magrin periodically deals considerable burn damage to all enemies within a 2.5 meter radius for a considerable amount of time while also blinding enemies. This ability only affects enemies, so it's very nice when the party is being overrun. The symbol of Barath deals corrode damage instead and weakens enemies. Symbol of Aethys also deals burn damage, but it increases all your party's defenses by 20. Symbol of Skaen deals piercing damage and hobbles enemies. Symbol of Whale deals freeze damage and increases your party's defenses against charmed, confused, and dominated attacks by 30. Finally, there's a symbol of Woedica that is not available to you, but is available to other priest NPCs in the game. This spell deals slashing damage and increases the accuracy of all party members by 30, which is bananas. Outside of this ability, I would say the symbol of Maugren is the best option. One talent I am not able to list here is Untroubled Faith, which is available when you have negative disposition effects, and that talent allows you to clear them. I recommend you avoid choosing the wrong disposition options and save yourself the talent point. Overall, I rank this class an S+. In my opinion, no other class changes your playthrough as much as a priest does. It's the most powerful healer you can have in the game by far, and it delivers the most powerful team-wide buffs. On top of that, you can also do incredible damage if you set up your priest properly. Priests get reactivity from their deity and the clergyman background, which provides it with more unique dialogues than all other classes except Cypher. From a role-playing standpoint, playing priest fits the Watcher like a glove, and again, only Cypher provides a more seamless experience. All of that on its own would be enough, but what really puts Priest over the top is that your Priest party member is arguably an inferior option for the class. While Durance has fantastic dialogue and a very interesting personal quest, he also has a mediocre dexterity rating that significantly limits how quickly he can sling out the spells that you need. By creating your own priest, you can have someone who is much more effective at healing and buffing the party quickly before enemies bombard them with devastating spells. In addition, more than any other class, 2 priests are not a crowd in your party, providing even more incentive for you to create one yourself. That completes my ranking of the priest class. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.